Welcome to Changing the Game, where bold leaders, rule breakers, and trailblazers drop the playbook and share how they lead, win, and shake things up. Hey there, it's Jordan, your host. If you've been loving the conversations on Changing the Game, I'm excited to introduce something new, the Nobody Cares Club, a show about building the life you actually want without worrying so much about what everyone else thinks. We're talking confidence, wellness, identity, relationships, and the reminder that nobody is thinking about you as much as you think they are. And that's the best news you'll ever hear. So stop waiting, stop overthinking, and get ready to be inspired to go after your dreams. Search Nobody Cares Club wherever you listen, launching summer 2026. All right, welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, I'm joined by Miranda Holder. Miranda is a former athlete and coach who spent 17 years in the sport of rowing, both as an elite rower and a Division I coach, with time at Georgetown and Northeastern, among others. Her own athletic journey took an unexpected turn when she was diagnosed with a heart condition at age 25 while pursuing an elite level rowing career, forcing her to rethink not just sport, but her identity and her path forward. Today, she's an executive coach and the founder of Holder Leadership, where she spent the last 10 years working with high achievers who have done everything right on paper, but still feel like something might be missing. She helps them navigate transitions, reconnect with who they are, and figure out what's actually next. Miranda, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jordan. It's a delight to be here.
I love that. It's a delight to have you. I always like to ask our guests to just give us a little overview or share with the audience what their journey was like early on. So I'd love to know, what was your journey like as an athlete and really what shaped you into this athlete persona early on?
Well, then it's important to start with, I didn't always feel like an athlete. I grew up in a family full of bookworms and serious nerds. And so I was not being taken to soccer practice in second grade. So athletics was something I came to later in life. And I started becoming more of an athlete in middle school and then was a 3-sport athlete in high school. But none of those sports really grabbed my heart. And my dad had rowed. And so I heard, this is the late 90s at the time, I heard you could walk onto rowing teams when you got to college. And that was right around when rowing was becoming an NCAA sport officially. And so there was a lot of buzz and press around it. And so I walked on to my college's rowing team and absolutely fell in love in a way that I had not before with any of the other sports that I played. And so it was just literally love at first sight. I remember almost driving off the road in Boston, looking at the rowing shells in the Charles River and just feeling like this is the thing for me.
That is really cool. I actually have very little understanding and experience with rowing. And I've had other rowers on the show before that have tried to explain the ins and the outs to me. And I actually did it. It's funny that you said you can walk on in college as a rower, having never done the sport before. I went to law school and my roommate in law school was a UMass rower. And she said the same thing. And I grew up in Minnesota. So like rowing, I feel like isn't as big as it is on the East Coast there. And I just remember her saying, yeah, I walked on at UMass. And I was like, what? Like that was such a foreign thing to me that you could just never have played the sport and then go play at the Division I level.
Yeah, it's wild.
It is. So it filled that kind of, I don't want to say gap, but it just like became that thing for you that really helped you step into your athlete identity. What was rowing in college like, having not done it before?
I mean, I loved it so much, and I had a lot to learn. I was definitely strong and tough. I had that going for me. Like I was willing to go into the pain cave, which is a big element of the sport. I would not say I was the most technically gifted or skilled right away. And that took a lot of work and a lot of patience. But it was a really amazing experience. I ended up captaining the team, and our senior year, we took the team to their first NCAA appearance. And I remember goal setting that year and actually saying that out loud to my coach. And she was like, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. That feels like we're reaching a little too far. And I remember being like, well, I'm going to show you. I was so mad, but I was so lucky that the class I was in, the co-captain that I had, we had a real core of people that really cared about excellence and being great and competitive. And we worked really hard to spread that throughout the team. And it was a really rewarding experience. I missed my own graduation and I would go back and do it all over again exactly the same way.
That's so cool. Do you think that you've always had kind of that, like, I'll show you mentality like you have with your coach, or where does that come from?
Oh, from what I said earlier about not being like a great athlete starting out and being like last kicked for like kickball and feeling like really awkward as a kid and being like I don't belong and then being like, I'm just gonna freaking figure this out. Like I'm just gonna do how hard can this be?
Yeah, like, I'm just gonna figure it out. Having that self-resourcefulness is so important, and I actually wanted to kinda go back because you said you had to enter the pain cave during rowing, and that's something that is a newer term to me because I just started kind of dabbling in, like, endurance sports, if you wanna call it that, as an adult. I have done a couple of, like, high rocks events,
Oh,
and
nice.
people use that word pain cave a lot. You go into the pain cave, and I experienced that on my first one. And I just want to know if you could explain to the audience, you might not have ever done an endurance sport. What does that mean, entering the pain cave?
Oh golly. So I'll just give you the most literal explanation. So in a rowing race, it's a spring sport. The technical college and Olympic distance is 2,000 meters, and so for a women's eight, which is eight rowers and one coxswain, um, like a top level collegiate eight will do that in about 6 and change minutes. And so, if you want to picture at the beginning of the race, about 20 or 30 seconds in, it starts to feel like someone is stabbing your legs with knives and sort of starting to pour acid into your muscles. About a minute in, and so it's a really intense level of hurt early on that then you have to sustain and perform really well under. And so the sense of it that I always made is I never felt terribly skilled as a ball sport athlete. Like I was a soccer player, I played basketball, I ran track. Um, the track gun really wigged me out. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
And I just felt like my brain could not keep up with the pace. Like I didn't have the kind of brain to be able to see the field or the court in the same way. And I got really far by being aggressive and tall and a really fast runner and outworking a lot of people. But I didn't feel like I was always skilled in that way. But in terms of being willing to be with pain and to go deeper into pain, that felt like a particular gift that I had. And just being willing to outwork and outlast somebody else.
Being able to sit with discomfort, I think, is a really necessary skill, but it's not a skill a lot of people possess. Like, it's very hard to develop.
It is. It is.
Do you think that's something that can be developed?
I absolutely think it is, but I think like most things, and I know the term for it now, it's called identified motivation, right? You have to have
Hmm.
a reason to do it.
Okay. Where did you learn that term, identified motivation? I've never heard
I
that.
can literally show you the book right now because it's right in front of me. I learned it when I read this book called Freely Determined by Ken Sheldon.
Okay. Recommendation for everyone, Freely Determined by Ken Sheldon. I love it. And what was that term? What was the term again? Identified
Identified motivation, which is just
motivation.
everybody knows what this means, in that think about any time you've done anything really hard. Why have you done it? Usually, if you've overcome a lot of hardship to get that thing done, it's because you care about the outcome, right?
Yeah.
Or you care about what it means to you. So it's like why people go hike the Pacific Crest Trail or the AT. It's like it's not really like what do they say? Type 2 fun. It's not really fun in the moment, or there's
Yes.
some fun in moments along the way, but there's a lot of hardship, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of discomfort. But there's a reason why you want to do it, and sometimes we're aware of it and sometimes we're not. But the more aware of what we are and the more clear we are in the why, the more it can drive us to go deeper into that pain cave or to achieve that kind of performance.
Yeah. So was the identified motivation for you after you crossed the finish line, or what was the feeling for you like going through that pain cave in rowing? What was the thing that made you just say like, "Oh, I'm willing to sit with this horrible discomfort because of a certain outcome." What was that for you?
Yeah, for me, I mean, at the time, I just wrote it off as competitiveness. I'm from my immediate, like my parents were not athletes really, but my grandfather was a really competitive basketball player, and he would get regularly kicked out of my basketball games in high school for not behaving well. And so I came by my competitiveness really honestly. Like I was the kind of person who'd be walking behind you in Boston and you wouldn't know I was racing you, but I
Oh
was.
yeah.
And so to me, it was just competitiveness. But what I understand about myself now, many years later, is that it was really, there was a wound. Like I did not feel capable as a kid. Like I didn't feel athletic. And it was really clear in the community and in the school that I grew up that being an athlete was the cool thing. That was the thing that made you belong. And so it was totally a desire to fit in, to belong, and to be a part of something. And then but that was like several layers underneath: the competitiveness, the wanting to win, the drive to succeed, to be the best.
Wow. That's really intuitive, I guess, or I guess self-aware maybe, for you to be able to identify that so many years later, that it came from maybe a place of lack. And how many years, and I don't mean to put that word, like the
Oh,
word lack, on you, but
go ahead.
that's what it sounds like you're saying.
Absolutely. Like I viewed it as a gap, as a lack. And so therefore everything that followed was proving myself. And so that's why it was like I grabbed onto rowing like super desperately, because I was like,
Yeah.
I'm the thing I never thought I could be. Not only am I an athlete, I'm a really good athlete. Now I'm a college athlete. And then
Mhm.
that's part of what led me to continue rowing after college, because my college coach said, you're good enough where you should at least try to make the national team. Like, who knows what will happen, but give it a try. And it was so important to me that when someone dangled that in front of me, I couldn't resist.
Oh my gosh, Miranda, I think that's something that I've heard a lot with younger athletes now, that such a big piece of their identity is their sport, whether it's coming from that place of lack or it's coming from people have just told them their whole life, this is what you're good at, this is what you should do. And it makes that transition out of sport, I think, even harder when it's something that becomes such a big piece of you. Um, so I do want to dive a little bit into your transition out, because your transition out was very unexpected. You were diagnosed with a heart condition at age 25. You're pursuing a professional career. So what was that like for you? Can you just take us back to that moment and what happened?
Yeah, and to be clear, nobody was paying me to row. I had a full-time job that was paying the bills, but I was training with a pre-elite team at Riverside Boat Club in Boston on either end of the day. So we'd row for a couple hours in the morning, go work a full day, and then, come back and row another 2 hours or lift weights or whatever in the evening. And it was almost like church to me. It was a great community. It was wonderful people. It was super fun. And it was a really hard schedule in life. And the heart condition that I got diagnosed with actually took my uncle's life really suddenly when he was 44. And so when I was 14, he passed away really suddenly. And when they did an autopsy on this, he skied and he, cycled and he did all this stuff. And so when they did an autopsy on a ostensibly fit person, they were like, oh, there's this genetic condition. And so we were tested as teenagers at that time. But the condition that I have, which I think is like, if you don't think the universe has a sense of humor, like, please laugh at this. Like, exercise is bad for me. Like, this condition is exacerbated by exercise.
Oh my God.
I think it's hilarious now. At the time, it destroyed me, but
Yeah.
now I can laugh at it.
Oh my gosh. So I can't imagine. First of all, I'm so sorry about your uncle. That's shocking and not anything I think anyone should ever have to go through. And I can't imagine having a lot of your identity being wrapped up in your sport and being diagnosed with something, as you said, that destroyed you at the time. How were you? Yes, go on.
Yeah. And so the irony is, I wasn't actually even that symptomatic. I knew that there was a head researcher that studied this condition. And so as a first degree relative of my uncle, I went to give blood to say, hey, I want to help, enlarge the knowledge that we have about this condition because it's pretty rare. And when I went in, he said, well, you haven't been tested in about 7 or 8 years. So let's, put you through the tests. And every test was a little bit weird until the final one where they were like, yes, you definitely have this condition. So it wasn't even like I was experiencing symptoms and I thought something was wrong. It was like, I was trying to be a good citizen.
Right.
And then I walk out with a diagnosis. It's like, and your whole identity is gone. So it was rough, to say the least, 3 years after that point.
Oh my God. So did you have to, what did you do after that? Did you just have to say, I have to be done right then and there? Like your career ended?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I had what's called an electrophysiology study, which is where they map the electrical activity of your heart. And I remember coming up out of sedation, and the doctor, the cardiologist, who I love now, but at the time I could have punched in the face.
No.
But I was coming out of sedation, and he's like showing me my test results, and he was explaining them. He's like, yeah, you definitely have to be done with rowing. And I'm like, dude, I'm not even fully conscious yet.
That's so funny because sometimes, I mean, everyone knows the stereotype that doctors don't have the best bedside manner. He probably got the results and was like, here you go, A, B, and
No,
C. This is how it goes. And you're like, wait, no, wait, this is like life altering for me. And you're just explaining it to me like a report card. Like,
I know, and the irony is he actually has an exceptional bedside manner, and he's like anyway. We can talk about. I love him. He's like very dear to me. But at the time, yeah, I think he was actually, because this is how doctors are. He studies this condition and disease, so he was really excited, and he also knew in that moment he was saving my life. Like he was
yeah,
literally saving my life. So I think he was excited for a lot of reasons. But at the time, I was like, "What? What's happening?" So yeah, I mean, I even tried to negotiate because I had read all these studies about rowers' hearts getting enlarged due to training and how it's important to like detrain slowly, not to just like
mm.
stop. And so I tried to negotiate with him, and he was like, "Nope, you just
Oh
have
my
to
God.
stop." The first time I got a pacemaker defibrillator implanted not long after. And I actually went rowing with it. And the first time, well, like the only time it's ever gone off was when I was rowing that first time. I was just like, I'm gonna take 10 hard strokes, just one last time.
Yeah.
My heart rate went up too high and it shocked me. And I was like, oh, that was dumb.
Was that the last time you rode then, or have you gotten in a boat since?
I have gotten in a boat. I don't, when's the last time? What a great question. I can tell you when my last races were. I think the last time I actually properly got in a boat was to fill in one day when there was an athlete missing when I was coaching at Georgetown for fun. It was like just totally fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I will occasionally get into one to teach a friend how to row, but nothing at all the way I used to.
The way it was. So did
Yeah.
you then transition into coaching immediately after because you were like, I can't separate myself from the sport yet? Or what was that transition like?
Yeah, I kind of didn't know what to do with myself after that. And I knew if I went home and just sort of got under the covers and hid, that wouldn't be the best solution. So I just found myself going back to the boathouse where I was training. And there was a guy who was coaching the men's side of the pre-elite group that I was a part of. And he was like, "Do you want to coach?" And I was like, "I've never coached before." He was like, "Well, I've seen you row. You can't be that bad." And I was like, well, who knows? But again, I just I mean, such a large part of my day and my identity in my life was spent in this place with these people and with this sport. And so I was like, if you're going to let me, hang around and be helpful, I'd be happy to do that. So in some ways, I mean, in every way, that was another like huge pivotal moment that, opened a door into a career that I never, ever in a million years would have thought I would do. Because I was planning to be an editor. So I was working at the time at an advertising agency. And I thought, books or magazine editing. Like I was going to go do word stuff. Teaching, coaching, all that stuff was never on the horizon.
It's so wild how life has different plans for you in those moments. Like you had this plan laid out. I'm going to row in college. I'm going to try to or I'm going to try to compete professionally. And then I'm going to go have this career in editing or advertising. And there were other plans for you. And you were just like, okay, I guess I'll stick to my sport.
Yeah, that's the meaning I make of it. I feel like the universe was like, I am gonna, no pun intended, pry your hands off this oar that you are gripping like way, way too tightly. And I wasn't completely ready to be done with it then. And I'm grateful for another 10 years to be with the sport. Because I think I needed some more time to be with it to really understand also that I had an identity beyond sport and even beyond coaching, like beyond this thing that had been so important to me.
Yeah, I love that you are able to say that you had an identity beyond it because I think that is one of the hardest transitions that athletes have to make. And I think a lot of us do go into coaching afterwards to ease that pain of losing your sport. I definitely did. I went afterwards and coached club for a few years. I coached high school club for 4 years and some Division 3. And I think it just does make that transition a bit easier where you don't have to fully lose that identity overnight.
Yeah.
So what was coaching like for you? You were at Northeastern and then you eventually became the Georgetown head coach.
Yep.
So what was that transition like going from assisting to head coach? Was it a big leap? How did that, I guess, continue to fuel your identity as an athlete in those 10 years of coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I think the competitive part of me was still like seeking a lot of validation. And I had the privilege of working with a lot of really great athletes throughout. So I coached club in the summer times too, and I worked with some pre-elite athletes, and it was fun to be successful. That was also, it was like, to your point, like it helped. It wasn't me directly, but it still helped feed that ego of like, I know what I'm doing. I'm good at this. And so again, I wasn't experiencing that in the moment. I wasn't aware of that in the moment. But upon reflection, that's exactly what was going on. But my transition from assistant coaching to head coaching, I mean, I think I speak for a lot of us who've made that transition. I think when you're an assistant coach, you come into that role because you have often perspective and confidence, and you're like, I can do this. Like, how hard can this be? I think I can be a head coach. And what you don't realize is it's what you've perceived as potentially the skill set is really different than the responsibility and the weight of the responsibility, and what it's like to be the person with whom the buck stops.
Mm.
Right. And so it's not just like, oh, I can write a training program, or I can come up with good team building stuff, or I can make these tough decisions. It's like, what is it like? I mean, I literally remember the first time I got in the truck, because this is a thing that a lot of rowing coaches do who don't have boatmen, full-time boatmen, is you get in the truck with, maybe $500,000 worth of equipment on a trailer behind you, and you're driving somewhere for spring training. And then you're also going to meet, 65 athletes somewhere. And you're like, I am responsible for the lives and the well-being and all of this money and equipment. Like, this is insane. This is an insane amount of responsibility to be stewarding. And that's a lot of pressure. And I think if you're paying attention and treating it with respect, it's a lot of responsibility.
I think that a lot of coaches, and I want to think about how I say this, because there are so many great coaches out there. I think not all coaches oftentimes realize the amount of responsibility that they have, especially to their athletes.
Yeah.
And it's something I'm really passionate about. I had great experiences with a lot of coaches. And then of course you have some not so great experiences. And I'm so ever grateful to the coaches that took that responsibility that they have very seriously, like you did, because I think it really established a lot of care and confidence in me, and an understanding of like, this is how you should be a steward to the game and to your athletes. And so I love hearing that you were like, this is a huge responsibility, because I think there should be more of that, like, I don't want to say pressure, but just that understanding of like, hey, this is a big responsibility and I have to take care.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I'm sure there are lots of things I did wrong. And I'm sure there are a lot of athletes that you could find who would say like, I didn't like how she behaved or acted all the time. So that's the even harder part, is you can care deeply and you can want to always do the right thing. And not everyone will be happy with what you do. And that also was like, that was part of the weight. It was like, as a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist, like, and someone who does really care about doing the right thing for other people. Like, I think I was always wanting to prioritize health and well-being of the athletes, and like seeing that as the first piece. But you also just don't, at the end of the day, you don't have control over how other people perceive you too. And so that's hard in and of itself.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because you're never going to make everyone happy. And yeah,
Exactly.
as a recovering perfectionist and people pleaser, it truly is, there's a big sense of freedom in saying, my intentions are good and I'm trying my best here. And it's not, I'm not always going to be liked by everyone. That's just a part of life.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you transition, so actually I want to get an understanding of, why did you decide to step away then and move into executive coaching?
Great question. So I met my husband at Georgetown. He was the swim coach. I was the rowing coach. And right before, literally like 2 days before we got married, he got a call from Brown University. He had applied for a job there. And we actually went straight from our honeymoon to Providence to have him interview.
Wow.
And he didn't get the job. We got married in August. He did not get the job. And I broke down and started crying. And he was like, what is your problem? Like this was what's going on here?
You're more upset than I am.
Exactly. And what I realized is that in this small space of time where he had applied and been interviewed, I started to imagine moving out of coaching and doing something else. And then when that exit ramp or that off ramp was taken away, I was crushed. But I had to go through that thought exercise to realize I was burned out. Like, I see notes about the pain cave before. Like rowers, endurance athletes are great at pushing through. I mean, all athletes are great at pushing through pain, right? And so we push through, we don't check in. And so I wasn't even aware how burned out I was until someone gave me the option of stopping. And then when that was taken away, I was like, oh, I am screwed. This is not good. And so then I spent a year exploring and thinking about what I wanted to do next.
Yeah. So you ended up landing on executive coaching. And I remember during our first conversation, you had mentioned that you work with executives who climb the first mountain, but then feel a little bit empty at the top. Was this a group that you said, I feel this personally, and so this is the people I want to work with? Or did you just find a nice niche with executives that felt that way? How did you land in that space?
That's a great question. I resisted that space, honestly, the career transition space for a long time when I first became a coach. So I was actually helped into coaching I was working with a therapist at the time on my burnout, and he was the one that suggested coaching because I literally didn't even know that the profession existed, and I was exploring a lot of other things. None of them felt right. Executive coaching was literally the only thing that felt right in my body as I moved through. And so I trusted that. I didn't know what I was working with at the time. Now I understand all the science behind that, which is fascinating. But at the time, I was just like, I don't know, this all feels wrong. This feels right. I'm going to go for it. And it ticks all my boxes of what I'm looking for. I want more flexibility. I want more space in my day. I want to make more money. And I also want to still work with people in transformation. I can't give up the meaning or the purpose aspect of this. Like I can't just go help someone sell more widgets. Like I can't do that.
Yeah.
And so, it was really interesting that right when I started executive coaching, I found that when I was encouraging people to trust themselves or maybe even their intuitive sense of where they needed to go next, that tended to work out brilliantly in a way that just blew my mind. And so it was kind of a combination of life circumstances and my own curiosity that led me to wanting to understand what was happening for me in these transition moments that I've had. And I also have some other stories as well, but I've had such a deep sense in my body always of what the right next move is, but I haven't always understood how to utilize that or what the science or the physiology is of that. And as a very analytical person also, I'm suspicious of that without a good story or without good reason. And so for me, it was kind of a convergence of my own journey into the research of what's going on in a moment when we feel something that we can't articulate. And also, if I just look at the bulk of my work in my business so far, these are the people that I want to work with. This is the mission I believe in. But it was a silly, stupid thing of not wanting to be categorized as a life coach or, seen as really fluffy in some way, shape, or form. But that, I'm really passionate about people doing what they love because I believe the world is a better place when people do what they love, and not in the very simplistic, find your passion and everything will work out, but truly what you feel that is meaningful to you and what you're gifted at and what energizes you and excites you. I genuinely believe the world needs that gift.
I can feel the passion coming off of you when you talk about it. I can actually feel it. And I think what you said is super interesting about knowing in your body that something was the right path for you, but also having to almost battle that analytical side that might be overthinking it or thinking you down a different path because of, I don't want to be categorized as X, Y, or Z, or all those things where the brain tends to get in the way of what the body actually wants. How did you learn to overcome that? And I guess I'm sure you coach your current clients on doing the same thing, getting into their body more. How do you coach someone to actually listen or tune into their body or sit with their discomfort so that they can figure out what is actually right for them?
Well, I tend to attract someone who's similar to me as a person. So that person is also usually a combination of, fairly analytical, but also if they're honest with themselves, they could be sensitive, emotional, even they've usually been a former athlete or maybe a yogi or a dancer. So they already have some relationship with their body and trust of their body. And so a lot of it is helping educate them about what it is that they're I think of it as your biological inheritance. This is the way your system works. And yet it's not a class that we are given in school. Right. But it's Jordan, you and I are here because our ancestors listened to their nervous systems.
Yeah.
right? That was a part of it. It wasn't all analysis.
That's so
Um,
true.
and so I think some of it is just like education and then helping people understand that this is like a muscle that you can improve or strengthen. Like everyone can have access to this. And so helping people understand how to do that and how to integrate it into their lives. And also even just through the coaching relationship, continuing to surface questions around, well, how does your body feel? Like someone will come to me with a question. And when I even just say, well, how does your body feel? And they say, well, this is how it feels. Well, what is that trying to communicate? What's in there? What wisdom is there? Um, Often really allows for a lot of clarity, peace, ease, conviction to come through in a way that doesn't really happen when we're trying to like solve it with our mind vice.
So true. I think back to times in my life where I knew in my body that maybe I wasn't right making the right decision. And I think for so long I pushed that away because of the analytical brain. You can
Yes.
think your way out of it, or hey, I need to make this decision because it looks good on paper or the resume or whatever it is. And in my body, I felt the resistance and I felt the stress associated with it, but I ignored that. I turned it off, and it always ended up the same way where I look back and I thought, and I don't regret any of it because it's led me to where I am now. So that's one thing I definitely want to distinguish, but it is so important to tune into your body because I think I would have made different decisions maybe then, and I could be on the path that I needed to be on a little bit sooner. Take it as it is, but I definitely understand feeling that resistance and how it can guide you to the right place or the wrong place.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I will say there was a tipping point for me of like a pretty big financial loss to actually have this like lesson really stick. And it was a painful mistake to make. I hired a contractor, and someone that we knew, and someone that again made sense on paper, but my body was sweaty and felt awful the moment where I was like signing the contract and handing money over to him. And I think the guy was likely mentally ill and then had some addiction issues, and so we lost about 48 of that $50,000
Oh my God.
that we set aside for a project, which was a very frustrating, painful experience. And again, I now view as a gift because it really forced me to see, like, I literally made a vow with my body on the other side of that. I was like, I will never not listen to you again. I don't care if it makes sense or not. I'm so sorry that we had to go through something so painful for me to learn this lesson. And that was kind of the tipping point of like, I've got to understand the physiology of this because I know it works. It must not just be me. What the heck is it?
Yeah. I felt that exact feeling before, Miranda. I'm sorry it was that big of a loss. I but I know that feeling too where you are signing the contract or you're doing something and you're like I just feel a lot of bit uncomfortable with this. And it is such a good compass to say, is this the best opportunity for me? And now we know how to lean into it. How would you encourage someone who maybe needs to regulate their nervous system a little bit more? Or what are some ways that people can start to tune into their body each day? How would you tell them to take like practical steps to do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to don't let me forget that question because that's such an important, good one. But I want to come back to a distinction that I think is important, which is,
Yeah.
for a lot of the clients that I work with and a lot of people that are out there, um, oftentimes it's actually their body that might be holding them back sometimes, right? You might actually feel like, boy, I really think I want to start my own business, but corporate feels so safe, right?
Mm,
It's actually like I have a feeling in my body where I feel pulled toward this other option, but I also have this really intense feeling in my body that pulls me back or doesn't allow me to move forward. So I think you're so wise to bring in that bit around nervous system regulation because what we're trying to do is have people's systems expand to make room for different possibilities and to feel like what kind of little steps can we take the same way. So think about how you learned your sport, right? Or how I learned my sport. Like they don't put you on the water right away. You sit on an erg on a rowing machine, you learn the basics of the stroke, and then you go in a really, really big stable boat, and then eventually you get into a racing shell. But there are these degrees of difficulty that we go through, and the same is true for us here. We need to go through We need to have safe, easy places to play and to grow and to expand our system. And then maybe we can take it into these bigger, scarier, harder arenas. So to get back to your question about how people can actually use this, I think body scans are one of the easiest and best way to regularly tune in. And you can find those free everywhere on the internet on lots of different platforms and apps. The one I love to use and I'm on is Insight Timer, and I don't get any kind of kickback from that. That's just my favorite one. But that's an easy place to begin, is to start with. It's a little bit like what you might do in PT, where first you have to make sure that your brain can connect to the muscle that you're trying to strengthen. And so the more you begin to just notice your body on purpose, the better you get. But if that's not interesting to you, any kind of practice that gets you into your body and gets you present without any kind of judgment or storytelling is great. So what I mean by that is, when you're washing the dishes or sitting on the couch or in your backyard, and if you can just send a spoke of awareness down into your body and say, what am I noticing right now? What am I feeling right now? It doesn't have to be a big, long 20-minute meditation on a cushion with special things going on. It can just be what's present right now. What am I feeling right now? And the more you ask yourself that, the more you recognize that your body is a source of wisdom and can be what I've found my own body to be, is like a comforting, safe friend, a comforting, peaceful presence to be with. The more that relationship can get developed and the more that trust can be built over time. Because a lot of it is, we need to build trust with what are we hearing, what are we listening to, and how can I actually use that?
Yeah. I think that's all really, really great advice. Being anything that gets you into your body and out of your brain sometimes is so good. And I love that you brought up that sometimes at the beginning of the question, you mentioned that sometimes your body can actually be, you can feel the pull to do something or go on a different path. And then your body can also be seeking safety.
Yes.
And that is a really great point to remember, that just because your body is seeking safety doesn't mean it's always the right decision.
Correct.
The best decision.
Yeah. Then we're back to identified motivation again, because we've got to identify what matters in a moment, right? Think about how many times, I'm imagining for you before a competition, how did your body feel right before that happened?
Yeah. I mean, I think back to my volleyball playing days too in college. Like, there were some matches, I mean, in the tournament where I was like, you just kind of go into a little like fight or flight cave yourself, but you can't leave. Like, you're like, that's not the right decision just because my body's seeking safety. If I leave, that's the worst decision of my life.
Exactly. Because you cared. You wanted to know how good you were on that day. You wanted to know what your team could put together on that day, right? So it was more important than if you were just going on, ease alone or comfort alone, you would have run out of the gym.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Such good things to remember. Yeah. It's such a practice too. I mean, it's like I'm writing all this down on paper that you're telling me to do here and how to be in my body and regulate my nervous system. But it's a practice. It's not just going to come after one or two times doing it. It's the constant little accumulation of like micro regulations, I guess, throughout your day.
Yeah. And I think it has a profound effect on your leadership development too, because the stuff that's going to hold you back, your blind spots, you're going to feel those in your body too. And so I find that I think about my body sensations almost like a map leading me toward what I need to work on and what also brings me more joy and more of a sense of aliveness. So whether it's something that makes me uncomfortable that I need to expand my capacity around, or whether it's something that I want more of and for whatever reason, I'm not allowing it, there's a rich map that you can create from those sensations, or a level of inquiry that you can go into to say, well, what do I need to shift or change or grow to make this less painful? Or what would I like more of in my life because this feels so good?
That's such a good call. It's like, yeah, a map of things that you can incorporate into your life. And sometimes I think when I'm feeling a little bit of resistance, maybe analytically, but my body is leaning into it, I will tell myself sometimes like, well, you have to do this now. You have to go do it, because otherwise you're going to wonder, What if I would have done that? What if I would have made that leap and tried that thing that maybe felt unsafe or was thinking maybe unsafe, but body was like, I'm passionate about this. I want to go do this. I don't, it's such a balance between the body and the brain at all times.
It is. And to be fair, I'm not an advocate of body only. I really look at this as like use your whole brain. We're a culture and a society right now that's obsessed with data. And so I will appeal to
Mhm.
the data nerds in the room. Use the whole data set, right? We wouldn't use part of it, we use the whole thing. And we've got 80% or more, like 80% of our nervous system is sending information up to our brain rather than our brain down to our body. So there is tons of data to be with if we're willing to be with it.
Yeah.
But again, because it's often or it can be uncomfortable or difficult to be with, and again, because we're not given skills as much to be with them, it can be a hard thing to do solo or without guidance.
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody is navigating this solo and they want to take a leap maybe into or working with somebody that can help guide them through this, where would you recommend they start? Obviously, they should connect with you, but where should they really go and figure out like where should they start if they just want a little bit more guidance?
Yeah, well, I think a coach is a great place to start, but there are also really wonderful therapists that do this work as well. But if you're specifically interested in how this might affect a career decision, then career and leadership coaching is a great place to start.
I love it. Miranda, where can our listeners find you if they want to connect with you and work with you?
You can all reach me at my website, which is holderleadership.com, or you can reach me via email, miranda@holderleadership.com. And I'm on the internet, much to my chagrin. I'm on Instagram at Holder Leadership and also on LinkedIn, on Substack, and too many places in my humble opinion, but it's 2026. So
Gotta
here we are.
subscribe yourself to every platform now.
Yes, well, the introvert in me had to get over myself and realize that if I actually cared about being in service, I had to put myself out there. So I'm out there anyway. But yes, I'd love to connect. This is a topic I'm really passionate about, and I'm happy to have a conversation about it anytime.
I love it. I'll put all of your contact info or your website in the show notes as well. So for anyone listening, find it in the show notes. But Miranda, one last question for you today. I always ask this at the end of every show. What does changing the game mean to you in this chapter of your life?
Mm. Changing the game to me at this chapter in my life looks like an integration between, because I think, Jordan, you and I both, this is important to both of us, right? Is being on that growth edge and continuing to learn and change and develop and having that growth mindset. And I'm also finding that this period and phase of life that I'm in, there's just a lot to really appreciate and love that isn't changing and that isn't different, and that there can be both things. And so changing the game for me right now means still being open to growth, still learning, still changing, and also learning how to sit still and appreciate what is.
Thank you so much for being here, Miranda. Wonderful advice for our listeners. Thank you to the audience for being here as well. And I can't wait to see how Miranda Holder leadership continues to spread its wings and impact lives. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.